My own son pushed me out of the car in the rain, and I ended up in a filthy puddle on the side of the road. My purse flew, my knee screamed, and the cold water soaked through my jeans in a heartbeat. As he slammed the door, he leaned over the passenger seat, eyes blazing, and shouted through the glass, "You're not worthy of being my mother." The kids were staring at me from the back seat, one wide-eyed, one smirking like this was a joke he'd seen before. And all because I dared to scold my grandchildren for their behavior. I lay there for a second, stunned, rain hitting my face, the smell of oil and wet asphalt in my nose, watching the red tail lights get smaller and smaller. Right there, in that puddle, something in me wasn't broken, it snapped into place. "You think I'm not worthy of being your mother, Eric? Okay, but I am damn well worthy of being your children's grandmother," and I was about to prove it in a way he would never recover from. I'm Linda. I'm 60, and I live in a modest little ranch house outside Dayton, Ohio. Retired surgical nurse, widow, mortgage finally paid off, arthritis in my right hip, and a coffee maker older than my youngest grandchild. It's not a fancy life, but it's mine. I raised my son, Eric, more or less on my own. His father was physically present, but emotionally intermittent, let's call it. He drank too much, worked too little, and eventually faded from our lives like a stain you scrub at so long it just turns into a dull blur. Eric was my baby, my only child. I worked nights, charted patient vitals, held strangers' hands through pain and fear, and then came home and packed lunches, checked math homework, and scraped dried ketchup off plates. Did I get everything right as a mom? Absolutely not. Did I love that boy with every ounce of energy my tired bones could muster? Yes, no hesitation. When he was little, he was sweet. He'd press his sticky hands to my cheeks and say, "You're the best mommy in the world." I would have walked barefoot over glass for that kid. The first cracks showed up around middle school. He'd snap at me, slam doors, call me annoying or controlling if I asked about his day. Normal teenage stuff, I told myself. He'd grow out of it. Except he didn't grow out of it, he grew into it. By the time he hit his 20s, he had that particular flavor of entitlement you see a lot nowadays. Everything was everyone else's fault. Boss didn't like him, toxic work environment. Girlfriend broke up with him, she was crazy. Bill collector calling, they're harassing me. I kept making excuses for him. His dad wasn't a good role model. I worked too much when he was little. He's just struggling to find his footing. Then came Brittany. She blew into our lives like a hurricane made of acrylic nails, false eyelashes, and vague influencer aspirations. She was younger than him, late 20s, with that permanent phone-in-hand posture. Always filming something, always posting. Nothing could just happen, it had to be content. To be fair, at first she was charming. She called me Mama Linda and brought me lattes when they visited. We'd sit at my kitchen table and she'd tell me about her big plans. YouTube channel, Etsy shop, online coaching business for mindset alignment. None of it lasted longer than 2 months. But then came the good news. "Mom, you're gonna be a grandma," Eric said, grinning wider than I'd seen in years. I cried. Of course I did. The idea of a second chance, to pour all the love and patience and time I couldn't afford when he was small, felt like a gift straight from the universe. Noah was born first, a serious, wide-eyed baby who clung to me like he was my island in a storm. Then Emma came 3 years later, a curly-haired firecracker with lungs that could probably shatter glass. From day one, I adored them. From day one, I also saw things I didn't like. The first time I realized something was really wrong, Noah was 4. They lived about 20 minutes away, in a townhome complex where all the units looked like they were copy-pasted from a brochure. I stopped by to drop off some hand-me-down clothes from a coworker's grandkids. Eric's truck was in the driveway, Brittany's car too. The front door was locked. I knocked. Nothing. Then I heard it, a thin, reedy, terrified little cry behind the door. "Grandma!" Noah's voice, small and muffled. My stomach dropped. I knocked louder. "Noah! Sweetie, it's Grandma! Where's Mommy and Daddy?" "I don't know," he sobbed. "They went bye-bye. I can't find the remote." That would have been funny if he hadn't sounded like he'd been crying for a long time.
"Can you open the door, honey?" Eventually, I heard the click of the deadbolt and the chain rattling. The door swung open to reveal my grandson in a saggy diaper, t-shirt smeared with something that looked like dried mac and cheese, cheeks streaked with tears. It smelled like old food and dirty dishes. "Where are your parents?" I asked, already afraid of the answer. He sniffled. "They went to get food. The TV turned off. I don't like it when it's quiet." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from an unknown number, likely his house phone, who even knows, but nothing from Eric or Brittany explaining anything. I scooped Noah up, heart pounding. I found a sticky note on the counter. "Mom, had to run out. Be back soon. If you see this, can you watch the kids? B&E." No time, no call, no permission asked. Just an assumption. If I show up and see your child locked in with the TV babysitting him, I'll just slide right into position and handle it. I bathed Noah, fed him, and when they finally came back, almost 3 hours later, they staggered in with shopping bags and that flushed, guilty look of people who'd stayed out too long. "Oh, good, you're here," Brittany said, like I was the DoorDash driver. "We were just gone a little while," Eric added quickly, avoiding my eyes. Noah ran to her and clung to her leg. "Why did you leave me?" he asked, voice wobbly. She laughed, actually laughed. "Drama King, you were fine. Grandma was nearby." I wanted to scream. Fine? But I said nothing. I told myself, everyone makes mistakes. They're young parents. They're learning. Then it happened again. And again. Sometimes half an hour, sometimes just running out to pick up takeout, sometimes emergency target run. A pattern formed. Anytime I dropped by unannounced, I served as their built-in safety net. I'd find Noah and later little Emma parked in front of a tablet or TV, the living room a battlefield of toys and food wrappers, while the adults ran out real quick without a word. I started saying things. "You can't leave them alone like that. You need to call me first. What if I hadn't stopped by?" I got a lot of eye rolls. "Mom, relax. They were fine. You're overreacting. Everyone does this." And this is where I began the long, humiliating journey of questioning my own judgment for people 20 and 30 years younger than me. Maybe I was old-fashioned. Maybe I was too anxious. Maybe this was just how things were done now. Except deep down, that nurse brain in my head, the one that had seen what happened when kids fell through the cracks, was whispering, "This is not right." The kids' behavior got worse as they got older. Noah, by 7, had perfected the art of ignoring adults. If you asked him to do something, he'd look right at you, then calmly do the opposite. "Time to put the tablet away," I'd say. He'd smirk, "No." Emma learned early that tantrums worked. She'd scream until her voice went hoarse, and eventually one of her parents would shove a device into her hands or give her candy just to make it stop. At my house, I had rules. Shoes off at the door, no eating in the living room, please and thank you. Devices off at the table. They didn't like it, but they adapted. We baked cookies, we went for walks, we read books on my sagging couch. I was trying to give them some kind of structure, even if it only happened in my little house. The trouble really flared when they started talking to me the way they heard their parents talk to me. One afternoon, I had both of them after school because Eric was working late and Brittany had some networking event. I served them spaghetti and meatballs, the way my mother used to, with garlic bread and a salad they ignored. "Say thank you, kids," I reminded them, sitting down. Noah looked at me and said, "You don't have to boss us around all the time, Grandma." Emma chimed in, "Daddy says you're too controlling." I set down my fork very carefully. "I love you, but I'm not your servant. I'm your grandmother. You will speak to me kindly, or you won't spend time here. Clear?" They both stared at me, shocked.
No adult in their lives ever put up boundaries like that. That night, I got a text from Eric. "What did you say to the kids?" "I told them they have to say please and thank you." They were really upset. "They said you yelled and made them feel bad about themselves." I spoke firmly. "That's not the same thing. Stop parenting my kids. You had your chance with me and you messed it up." That last line, that one punched through my ribs and sat in my chest like a stone. Messed it up. As if I hadn't worked double shifts and skipped meals to keep a roof over his head. As if I hadn't worn the same pair of shoes for 2 years so he could have the name brand sneakers he begged for. I stared at my phone a long time before responding. I won't let anyone talk to me with disrespect in my own home, including children. You're selfish. You care more about respect than their feelings. Don't make me keep them from you. The kids are saying they don't feel safe around you when you get like this. He'd put safe in quotes. I could practically hear him sneering. That was the first time he threatened to use my own love for those kids as a weapon against me. It wouldn't be the last. The incident that technically led to him pushing me out of the car started in the grocery store. It was a rainy Saturday, the kind where the sky just gives up and dumps water straight down for hours. I had agreed, after much internal debate, to go with them to Costco. Strength in numbers, I thought. Maybe I could help keep the kids corralled. Bad assumption. From the moment we walked in, it was chaos. Emma insisted on standing in the cart, then shrieked when told to sit. Noah zigzagged down the aisles, bumping into people, dragging his hand along shelves and knocking things over. Brittany floated a few steps behind, scrolling on her phone, occasionally snapping a story for Instagram. Eric was in his own world, comparing TVs we couldn't afford, and talking loudly about needing an upgrade. At one point, Noah rammed the cart into the back of my heel, hard. Pain shot up my leg. I gripped the cart to keep from falling. "Ow!" I gasped. "Noah, you could have knocked me over." He giggled. "It's not funny," I said, sharper now. "You need to be careful. You can seriously hurt someone." "Relax," Eric said, not even looking at me. "He's just playing." "He's not just playing," I snapped. "My balance isn't what it used to be. I could break a hip and that's it for me." "Stop making everything about you," Brittany muttered, eyes still on her phone. People were starting to glance our way. I could feel my face burning. In the car on the way back, the kids were wound up on free samples and sugar. Eric drove. Brittany sat in the passenger seat texting. The kids were in the back, kicking the seats, arguing over a tablet. I sat behind Eric, rubbing my sore ankle, watching the rain streak down the windows. "Noah," I said, turning around, "you remember what happened in the store?" He shrugged, not looking up from his tablet. "When you hit my heel with the cart?" I prompted. "That could have been very serious. You need to listen when an adult tells you to stop. That's how people get hurt." "Whatever," he muttered. Emma mimicked me in a mocking tone. "That's how people get hurt." I took a breath, tried again. "Listen, I love you both, but I will not be treated like I don't matter. I'm a person, not just grandma who babysits. When I say something, it's not to ruin your fun, It's to keep everyone safe and show respect. Brittany sighed loudly. Here we go, she said under her breath. What does that mean? I asked. It means, Eric said, voice tight, you turned a tiny accident into a lecture about respect, like you always do. He's 7, I said. He needs to learn. No, Eric snapped. What he needs is to not be shamed by an old woman because he made a mistake. Shamed? I repeated. I didn't shame him. I corrected him. That's called parenting. Exactly, Eric shot back. Which you're not. You already did your damage with me. You're not doing it to them. I felt like he'd slammed a fist into my chest. Damn, Eric, I corrected myself. I gave you boundaries. That is not damage. He laughed, harsh and humorless. Boundaries? You mean patrol? We were speeding now, the windshield wipers working overtime. My heart hammered with the rhythm of the blades. I will always say something if I see the kids being rude or unsafe. I tried to keep my voice even. If you don't like that, maybe don't ask me to watch them.
Trust me, he said. After today, we won't. It was like someone had poured ice water down my back. I'd heard that threat before, but this time it felt different, final. From the back seat, Noah piped up, Daddy, Grandma is mean. Emma chimed in. She said I was bad. I had not. I'd said her behavior was bad. But kids repeat the headline, not the nuance. Eric's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. See, he said, they don't feel safe around you. Don't you dare put that in their mouths, I snapped, finally losing my temper. They feel whatever you tell them to feel. He hit the turn signal so hard I thought it might snap off and jerked the car to the shoulder. Get out, he said. For a second I thought I'd misheard him. What? Get out. His voice was flat, deadly calm. It's pouring, I said quietly. We're on the side of the highway. He twisted in his seat to glare at me. I am not going to let you poison my kids against me the way you poisoned me against my dad. I stared at him, stunned. Your father walked out on us. That was his doing, not mine. You made him the villain. You're always the victim. Poor, hardworking mom, everyone owes her kindness. Get out of my car. No, I said, my voice shaking but firm. You are not dumping me on the side of the road like trash because you don't like being called out. He unbuckled his seatbelt, leaned over the console, and suddenly his hands were on my shoulder and arm, rougher than they'd ever been when he was a kid. I said, get out, he hissed. He shoved. I wasn't ready. The door flew open with the force, my hand slipping off the handle as I tried to grab onto something. My left foot hit the wet gravel wrong, ankle twisting, and then my right knee buckled. I went down hard, palms first, then one hip, water soaking through everything in an instant. The impact rattled my teeth. The rain was cold, shocking, like it was trying to wash the whole scene away before I could process it. I heard the slam of the door. Eric's face appeared at the window, distorted by raindrops. You're not worthy of being my mother, he shouted through the glass. His words were muffled, but the hate in them was not. Then the car roared back onto the road. Through the blur of water and tears, I saw the kids' faces in the rear window. Noah looked half amused, like he was watching a drama he'd seen building for a while. Emma looked scared, but she didn't cry out. She just stared as my figure shrank in the distance. I sat there in the puddle, shaking, my hands stinging, knee throbbing, clothes clinging. Cars whooshed past, spraying me with more dirty water. I am 60 years old. I spent decades lifting patients twice my size, standing for 12-hour shifts, learning how to keep my voice calm while I held someone's life in my hands. I have slept in waiting room chairs. I have eaten lukewarm soup at 3 a.m. while charting because it was the only break I'd get. I have held my crying son through nightmares, fevers, broken hearts. And my own child had just pushed me out of a car and left me in a gutter like a piece of trash. Something inside me hardened. Not bitter, not broken. Solid. I pulled myself up, slowly, using the guardrail for support. My niece screamed in protest. I tested my weight. It held. Barely. I called a cab. Not him. Not anyone else. By the time I got home, every movement was pain. I peeled off my wet clothes, saw the bruises blooming on my knees and hip, the raw scrapes on my hands. I took pictures. Then I did something I've only done twice in my life outside of work. I took myself to the emergency room. The ER nurse was younger than my son, ponytail bobbing, sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. "What happened?" she asked, gently cleaning gravel out of my palm. I hesitated. Years of making excuses for him sat heavy on my tongue. "I fell," I started. She raised an eyebrow, looking at the pattern of bruises. "On what? A moving car?" I laughed a humorless laugh that almost turned into a sob. "My son pushed me out of his car, on the side of the highway." Her eyes softened, and I saw it. That look I'd given Patient's family members 1,000 times. Compassion mixed with professional distance. "Did he mean to hurt you?" she asked. "I meant to get me out of his life," I replied. "Hurting me was a bonus." She documented everything. Pictures, notes, questions about whether I felt safe. Did I want to talk to a social worker, file a police report? I said no to the police, at least that night. I was humiliated enough already. The idea of having to stand there and say, "Yes, officer, my grown son shoved me into traffic-adjacent mud because I told my grandkids not to be rude," felt like a nightmare. But the nurse at least convinced me to let her write exactly what I said in my chart. "Just so there's a record," she said. "You never know when it might matter." I didn't know it then, but that little suggestion would end up being one of the most important moments of my life. I went home aching and exhausted, clutching a copy of my discharge papers and a prescription for anti-inflammatories. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed Eric as a baby, where he'd done his homework, where I'd paid bills late at night while he slept. My hands shook as I opened my notebook, the one I kept grocery lists and reminders in. On a fresh page, I wrote at the top, in shaky block letters, "Eric and kids, incidents." Then I started writing. Every moment that had seemed a little off. Every time I'd found the kids dirty, hungry, left alone. Every time they'd parroted cruel things he'd said about me. 4 pages later, my hand was cramped and my eyes were burning. But looking at that list, in cold black ink, something became painfully clear. This wasn't about me. It wasn't about my pride or my hurt feelings or even the bruises and sprain throbbing in my leg. It was about those kids. What they were seeing, what they were learning, what they weren't getting, safety, stability, basic respect for anyone. If he could throw his own mother out of a car, what wouldn't he do? That night, I made myself a promise, right there at that kitchen table. I was done begging to be treated decently. Done making excuses, done hoping he'd wake up one day and be the son I needed. I couldn't fix him. I could still protect his children, even if it meant protecting them from him. The next day, he texted, "Eric, so I guess you're alive. Eric, the kids are upset. You scared them with your little stunt. You owe them an apology." I stared at the screen, mouth slightly open. I owed them an apology? I took a breath, counted to 10, then replied, "Me. You pushed me out of a moving vehicle, Eric. You're lucky all I have are bruises and a sprain. Me. Do not contact me again until you're ready to acknowledge what you did." His response was immediate. "Eric, you climbed out. I told you to get out and you chose to. Stop being dramatic. Eric, I'm blocking your number. You're not seeing the kids until you learn some boundaries." There it was. The threat made real. He blocked me. I saw the gray, "not delivered" message pop up when I tried one last time to reply. I sat there, phone in hand, trembling. Then I did something that even surprised myself. I didn't chase him. I didn't call from a different number. I didn't email and beg or apologize just to get access to the kids. Instead, I opened my laptop. I Googled Grandparent Rights Ohio, child neglect. I read and read and read. I read horror stories. I read complicated stories. I read a few hopeful ones. By the time I closed the laptop, my tea had gone cold. I picked up the phone and called the number on one of the legal aid websites. "Montgomery County Legal Aid, how can I help you?" a woman asked. "Hi, my name is Linda Carter. I'm a grandmother, and I need to talk to someone about my son's kids. I think they're not safe." They assigned me a meeting with a pro bono attorney 2 weeks later. In the meantime, I started gathering evidence. I didn't know if any of it would be useful. I just knew that if this turned into a he said, she said situation, I'd lose, easily. He was younger. He'd cry on command. He'd tell everyone I was old, confused, bitter, controlling. He'd been rehearsing that speech for years. So I prepared. I printed every text thread where he dropped the kids on me for days at a time with no notice. "Can you keep them tonight, Mom? Brittany and I need a break. We'll be back by 10. They'd show up at noon the next day. "Hey, emergency, can you watch the kids this weekend? We'll owe you." No food sent with them, no schedule, no medicine list. I printed pictures I'd taken of the kids arriving without jackets in winter, wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, hair matted, smelling like they hadn't bathed in days. I printed screenshots of Brittany's social media posts, her at bars, her at concerts, her drinking in the middle of the afternoon captioned, "Mommy deserves a break," with no sign of the kids anywhere. "No," I said slowly. "He hasn't spoken to me in weeks." She pressed her lips together. "Then who's with them?" The answer, of course, was no one. Or maybe Brittany, if she happened to be home and awake, which was a coin toss at best. That same week, I ran into Noah's teacher at Kroger. We'd met once at a Grandparents' Day event. She recognized me, smiled, then her face turned serious. "Can I ask you something?" she said, glancing around. "As his grandmother?" "Of course," I said, dread creeping in. "Is everything okay at home for Noah?" she asked. My throat tightened. "Why do you ask?" She sighed. "He's been coming in late a lot, sometimes in the same clothes as the day before. He's often very tired, very irritable, and the last few weeks, he's been saying things like, 'No one cares what I do,' and 'I'm just the problem child.'" My eyes stung. "No," I said softly. "It's not okay at home." She nodded slightly, like she'd expected that answer, but needed to hear it. "She've made some internal reports," she said carefully, "but sometimes family stepping up can make a big difference.
There it was again. The universe, nudging me. That night, I sat at my table again, phone in front of me, the number from the lawyer's card displayed on the screen. I picked it up and dialed before I could talk myself out of it. "County Children's Services, how can I help you?" a woman's voice said. I took a breath. "My name is Linda Carter. I'm calling about my grandchildren. I believe they're being neglected." And just like that, the first domino fell. The intake worker asked questions, lots of them. Names, ages, addresses. How often did I see them? What condition were they in? Was there any history of violence, substance abuse, domestic disputes? I told her about the time I'd found them alone, about the late-night call from Ruth, about the teacher's concerns. I told her about being pushed from the car. She was quiet for a moment. "Do you have documentation of the hospital visit?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Any photos of your injuries?" "Yes." "Would you be willing to email those to us along with any other documentation you have?" I almost laughed. Documentation? I had a whole binder. "Yes," I said. "I'll send everything." After we hung up, my hands shook. Part fear, part adrenaline, part release. I was done being the only one who knew. Now the situation existed outside my house, outside my head, on a record, in a system. That alone felt like a small bit of justice. Within a week, a caseworker called me. Her name was Denise. Her voice was calm, professional, but not cold. "I've reviewed your report. We'll be conducting a home visit with your son and his family. I may reach out again." "Will you tell him it was me?" I asked. "Eventually, he'll receive a copy of the allegations, but you are not the only person who has expressed concern. The school has contacted us before." That eased some of the guilt. Just a little. Days passed with no update. I imagined the visit. Eric would charm them, he always could when he tried. He'd say I was exaggerating, that I was old-fashioned, that I didn't understand modern parenting. He'd say I got confused, that I fell out of the car on my own. If he'd ever applied that much imagination and energy to being a father, that he applied to avoiding responsibility, those kids would have had a much better life. Then, on a Thursday I will never forget, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Denise standing there. Beside her, eyes downcast, holding small backpacks, were Noah and Emma. "Miss Carter," she said gently, "we need to talk." I looked from her to the kids, my heart in my throat. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping aside automatically to let them in out of the cold. "Let's sit down," she said. We sat at my battered kitchen table. The kids hovered in the doorway, uncertain. "Sweethearts," I said softly, "go get your favorite mugs from the cupboard. We'll have some hot chocolate, okay?" They scampered off, a little too eagerly considering the circumstances. That alone told me too much. Denise folded her hands. "We did an unannounced home visit today. I pictured Eric rubbing sleep from his eyes at noon, beer bottles on the coffee table, dishes piled high. I pictured Brittany, maybe, or whoever she'd been replaced with that week." "How were they?" I asked, my voice tight. She sighed. "The condition of the home was concerning. The children reported being left alone for long periods. There was alcohol present within reach, very little food in the fridge, and significant safety hazards." She paused. "There was also evidence of domestic disputes, holes in walls, broken furniture." My chest ached.
It was one thing to suspect, another thing to have it confirmed by someone with authority, someone who saw this bad and this worse every day. "Where is Eric?" I asked quietly. "With another worker, answering questions," she said. "For now, given the situation, we made the decision to place the children in emergency kinship care." I blinked. "Kinship care?" "With a relative," she clarified. "With you, if you're willing." If I'm willing, I almost laughed. Was I willing to breathe, to have my heart keep beating, to take my hand off a hot stove if it burned? "Yes," I said, voice thick. "Of course. Whatever they need." She nodded. "There will be paperwork. There will be hearings. This is temporary for now, but we wanted to keep the children with someone familiar instead of placing them with strangers." Behind us, I heard a cupboard door bang a little too hard. I turned to see Noah standing there, mug in hand, staring at Denise. "Are we in trouble?" he asked. The simplicity of that question nearly broke me. "No, baby," I said, getting up to cup his cheek. "You're not in trouble. The adults are." He frowned. "Are we staying here?" "For now, yes," Denise said gently. "With your grandma." His shoulders dropped in visible relief. Emma, overhearing, clutched her stuffed bunny tighter. Denise spent 2 hours with me that day, going over forms, explaining the process. "You will have an emergency placement hearing within a week," she said. "The judge will decide whether the children remain with you temporarily." "And Eric?" I asked. "He'll have case plan requirements," she said. "Parenting classes, substance use evaluation, stable housing, possibly anger management. It depends on what the full assessment shows." "And if he doesn't do those?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Then," she said carefully, "we'll look at more permanent arrangements for the children. That could include you petitioning for custody." After she left, the house felt simultaneously fuller and emptier. Fuller because the kids' voices and footsteps filled every room. Emptier because the weight of what just happened sat heavy in my chest. I made grilled cheese for dinner. The kids devoured them like they hadn't seen real food in days. "Do you have to tell Daddy we're here?" Emma asked suddenly, crumbs on her chin. "Yes," I said gently. "He already knows." Her little mouth pressed into a thin line. "He'll be mad." "Sometimes," I said, choosing my words carefully, "grown-ups get mad when they're caught making bad choices, but that doesn't mean you did anything wrong." They both looked at me like I'd just told them the moon was made of chocolate. The idea that you could be innocent in the middle of someone else's mess was clearly new territory. After I tucked them in that night, in the room that had been my sewing room, now hastily converted to a kid's room with spare bedding and an old nightlight, I sat down at the table again. I added new pages to my binder. Date: children placed in emergency kinship care with me. I wanted to feel triumphant. Isn't that the part in revenge stories where the avenger smirks and says, "Checkmate"? But all I felt was tired. Bone-deep, soul-deep tired. Still, underneath that fatigue, like a warm coal in ashes, there was something else. Resolve. I'd started this ball rolling. Now I was going to see it through. For them. And, if I'm honest, a little bit for that version of me still sitting in the puddle on the side of the road. Eric did not come over that night. He did not call. He did not text from someone else's phone. He did not ask if I'd gotten the kids settled or if they were scared. The next day, though, my neighbor Ruth called. "Linda," she said, "I just got off Facebook. You might want to sit down." "I am sitting," I said, sipping my coffee. "That bad?" "She's blasting you all over, saying you lied to children's services, that you're trying to steal his kids, that you're crazy." I closed my eyes for a moment. "Can you send me screenshots?" I asked. She already did, she replied. I opened the messages. There it was, a long, dramatic post on his page, public for the world to see. My own mother lied to the government to get my kids taken away. She has always been a controlling narcissist who wants to ruin my life. She's old and confused and making up stories about me. If you know the truth about her, please comment so everyone can see what she's really like. Comments flooded underneath. Some from his bar buddies, of course. Man, that's messed up. Sorry, bro, toxic parents are the worst. Some from people who'd known us when he was a kid. This doesn't sound like the Linda I knew. One from a woman I barely remembered, an old neighbor from when Eric was in high school. I remember Linda working 3 jobs to keep that boy out of trouble. This doesn't sit right with me. My favorite came from my neighbor Ruth. As someone who's lived next door to Linda for years, I can say she's one of the kindest, most responsible people I've met. Sometimes when multiple systems are concerned about kids, it's not because of lies, it's because of patterns. I smiled despite myself. I'd bring Ruth a pie later. But there was one comment that made me screenshot everything instantly. Eric himself replying to someone who asked, "What actually happened?" She's been meddling for years. I told her to get out of my car because she was yelling at my kids and she made a scene. She literally threw herself in a puddle and then told the hospital I pushed her. She's insane. I'd do it again if I had to. I'd do it again. There it was, in black and white. His casual admission, even while trying to deny it. I printed that out too. Into the binder it went. That binder was getting thick. So was my skin. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday. I put on my best respectable grandmother outfit and went with Denise and the kids to the courthouse. It was a small courtroom, fluorescent lights hum-buzzing above, wood paneling worn from years of elbows and hands and tears. Eric was already there, sitting at the opposite table with a court-appointed attorney. He looked tired, eyes red-shot, jaw clenched. For a moment, my heart did that stupid, soft thing it always did, where it remembered the little boy who used to run to me, arms wide when I picked him up from school. Then he saw me, and his face twisted with pure hatred. He leaned over and said something to his lawyer, gesturing in my direction. The lawyer glanced at me, then at my binder. I sat up a little straighter. The judge was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a blunt bob haircut. She opened the file, scanned it for a moment, then looked up. "We're here today regarding Noah and Emma Carter. Children's Services, please summarize the current placement and concerns." Denise stood and spoke clearly, professionally. She laid it out. The condition of the home, the previous reports from the school, the incident with the car, the emergency removal and placement with me. Eric's lawyer tried to argue. "Your Honor, my client denies pushing his mother. He states she exited the vehicle of her own accord during an argument." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And left herself in a ditch?" "She is prone to dramatic behavior," the lawyer said weakly. I clenched my jaw. Denise spoke up. "Your Honor, we have the ER report where the mother told hospital staff she'd been pushed. We also have photos of her injuries consistent with a fall from a vehicle. Additionally, there is a social media post in which Mr. Carter states, and I quote, 'I'd do it again.'" The judge's eyes flicked to Eric. "Is that accurate, Mr. Carter?" He shifted in his seat. "I was upset. She's blowing it out of proportion. She's been trying to make me look like a bad father for years." The judge looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Carter," she said, "it does not take much to look like a bad father when children are left alone, the home is in disarray, and you admit
to putting your mother in harm's way during an argument in front of your children." He opened his mouth, then closed it. My heart pounded. This moment right here was the beginning of my revenge. Not because I wanted him in pain, but because I wanted the truth laid out piece by piece where he could not control the narrative. The judge turned to me.
"Mrs. Carter," she said, "you are currently serving as the emergency kinship placement. Are you willing to continue that arrangement?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said, voice steady, "for as long as necessary." "Are you physically and financially able to care for 2 minor children?" she asked. "I'm retired, with steady income from my pension and Social Security," I replied. "I own my home, my health is generally good, I have a support network, neighbors, friends, and I've spent my career caring for people in difficult circumstances. I can handle it." She nodded. "Do you have any criminal history, substance abuse issues?" "No, ma'am," I said. Denise confirmed that their background check on me had come back clean. The judge shuffled papers, then spoke. "Given the evidence presented, the concerns reported by multiple parties, and the lack of a safe and stable environment in the parents' home, I am ordering that Noah and Emma remain in temporary kinship care with their grandmother, Linda Carter." My knees nearly gave out with relief. "Mr. Carter," the judge continued, "you will have supervised visitation at the agency's discretion. You are to complete parenting classes, a psychological evaluation, and a substance abuse assessment. We will review your progress in 3 months." Eric finally exploded. "This is ridiculous," he yelled, standing up. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, but he shook it off. "She's lying. She's been lying my whole life. She just wants to control everything." The judge's gaze was ice cold. "Sit down, Mr. Carter, or I will find you in contempt." He sat, breathing heavy, glaring at me like I'd personally dragged him in chains into that courtroom. But here's the thing. I hadn't dragged him anywhere. He'd walked himself there, one bad decision of a time. I just turned on the lights so everyone else could see it. The next few months were a strange mix of mundane and monumental. On the surface, life became a blur of school drop-offs, lunch packing, homework help, bath times, bedtime stories. My quiet, predictable routine was replaced with missing socks, forgotten permission slips, and the constant hum of kid noise. I was tired, in a way that I hadn't been since my 30s. But it was a good kind of tired. The kind where you collapse into bed, knowing you're spent, but for the right reasons. Underneath that, though, there was the ongoing drumbeat of the case. Home visits from Denise, phone calls with lawyers, meetings with therapists and school counselors, court-ordered evaluations for Eric that he rescheduled or skipped more often than he completed. The kids had supervised visitation with him at the agency center once a week. The first time we went, Emma clung to my hand so hard my fingers ached. "You're coming with us, right?" she whispered. "I'll be right here in the building. If you need me, the staff can come get me." Inside the visitation room, a sad attempt at coziness with faded posters and battered toys, Eric sat stiffly in a chair. He didn't look at me. He kept his eyes on the kids as they ran in, then darted glances at the mirrored wall, clearly aware he was being watched. I sat in the waiting area, reading the same paragraph in a magazine 17 times, not taking in a word. After an hour, the door opened and the kids came out. Emma looked sad but calm. Noah's jaw was tight. "How did it go?" I asked gently. "It was fine," Emma said, in that automatic way kids say things when they're trying to protect the adults around them. Noah shrugged. "He said you lied," he muttered. I nodded slowly. I figured he might. "He said you tricked the judge and took us away from him," he continued, testing my reaction. I met his eyes. I did not flinch. Do you remember all the times you were here with me when they left you alone?" I asked. He shifted, looking down. "Yeah." "Do you remember being hungry, wearing the same clothes for days, being scared when they were yelling?" I asked. His eyes filled with tears. "Yeah," he whispered. "That's what I told the judge," I said softly. "I didn't have to trick anyone. I just told the truth." He sniffed. He said, "You're old and confused. I smiled sadly. Well, I am old, and I forget where I put my keys a lot. But I don't forget how to protect the people I love. He was quiet a long moment. Then he very quietly said something that nearly shattered me. Can we stay with you? I swallowed hard. I don't know yet, honey, I said honestly. But I will fight for you as long as I'm breathing. That I can promise. And I meant it.
More than I'd ever meant anything. Eric did not like being held accountable. The case plan requirements, counseling, classes, assessments, weren't things you could charm your way out of. They had attendance sheets, signatures, progress notes. The first review hearing came up 3 months later. Denise submitted her report. Eric had attended 2 out of 6 parenting classes. He'd missed a substance abuse assessment, then completed it on a rescheduled date. The assessor recommended treatment for alcohol misuse. He'd attended 1 session, then stopped going. His supervised visits were inconsistent. Sometimes he showed up. Sometimes he called in sick. Sometimes he just didn't come, leaving the kids waiting in that too bright room, eyes flicking to the door every time it opened for someone else. Denise outlined all of this calmly. Eric's lawyer argued that he was under a lot of stress, that he was trying his best, that his work schedule was unpredictable. The judge listened, then turned to Eric. "Mr. Carter," she said, "this court is not here to punish you. We are here to ensure the safety and stability of your children. So far, your actions suggest that your pride is more important to you than their well-being." "I love my kids," he said through gritted teeth. Love is a verb, a sustained pattern of behavior, not just a feeling. My respect for that judge grew 3 sizes in that moment. After the hearing, in the hallway, he finally spoke to me directly for the first time in months. "You happy now?" he snarled, stepping into my path. "You got what you wanted. You turned my kids against me." I looked at him for a long moment. "What I wanted," I said, "was for you not to leave them alone, not to scream at them, not to drink yourself stupid while they cried in their room. What I wanted was to not get pushed out of a car like we were in some bad movie." He sneered, "Always the victim. You know what? Keep them. See how long you last. You're old. You'll die and they'll end up in foster care anyway." For a moment, my vision blurred with rage. I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. "If you spent half as much energy taking responsibility as you do insulting me, we wouldn't be here. But we are. And you know what? I am old. I won't be around forever. That's why I'm doing this now, to give them a chance to grow up without needing therapy, just to like themselves." He scoffed, "Like you're some perfect mother." I was not perfect, but I never left you alone with no food, and I never pushed my own mother out of a car. He flinched then, just a bit. It was the first crack I'd seen in his armor since this whole mess began. But sympathy is not the same as surrender. I could feel for the broken little boy inside him all I wanted. It didn't change the fact that grown-up Eric was dangerous to others, and more importantly, to his children. I walked past him without another word. If this were a movie, this is where he'd hit rock bottom, go to every class, apologize, heal, and turn into attentive father of the year. Real life is messier. He had good weeks where he'd actually show up, engage in the visits, bring the kids snacks, ask about school. Then he had bad weeks where he'd rage post online, miss appointments, send long, rambling emails to Denise accusing me of being out to get him and colluding with the system. He never apologized. Not for the car, not for the neglect, not for anything. Meanwhile, the kids settled into life with me. We established routines. Pizza Fridays, library Saturdays, Sunday morning making pancakes, flour dusting the counter, Emma insisting on cracking the eggs herself. Noah started doing better in school. His teacher emailed me to say his homework was consistently done now. His focus improved, his meltdowns less frequent. "She structure suits him," she wrote. "You're doing a great job." We started family therapy, the kids and me, to process everything. Our therapist, a calm woman with a soft voice and steel underneath, helped them name their feelings. Confusion, sadness, anger, guilt. She said to them one day, "Kids in your situation often feel like it's their fault. Like if they had been better, their parents wouldn't have gotten in trouble. I want you to know, 100%, none of this is your fault." Noah frowned. "But if we weren't so loud, Daddy wouldn't yell," he said. She shook her head gently. "It's a grown-up's job to control their voice, not a kid's job to be quiet enough to keep them calm." I watched something relax in his shoulders at that. It hit me then. I wasn't just fighting for their safety. I was fighting for their understanding of what love is supposed to look like.
Love isn't walking on eggshells. Love isn't silence at gunpoint. Love isn't being thrown out of a car for having an opinion. Love is boundaries. Love is accountability. Love is doing the hard thing even when people hate you for it. The big turning point came about 9 months into the case. By then, I had temporary legal custody. Eric's progress on his case plan was minimal. He'd completed the parenting class series after his lawyer begged him to. He'd gone to a few therapy sessions, but stopped when the therapist challenged him to take responsibility for his actions. He'd attended some treatment for alcohol use, then dropped out. The counselor's report, which Denise summarized for the court, said he demonstrated poor insight into his behavior and minimized his use and its impact on his functioning and relationships. In other words, he didn't think anything was his fault. The final straw was a supervised visit that went badly. From what staff told Denise, and she told the court, he'd spent the entire hour grilling the kids about what I'd said to them, insisting they tell the judge he was a good dad, accusing them of betraying him because they liked living with me. Noah shut down. Emma cried. The visitation supervisor ended the visit early and wrote in her report that continued visits in this format might be emotionally harmful to the children. When they came out that day, Emma's face was blotchy, Noah's eyes hard. "I don't want to go back," Emma whispered into my cardigan. Noah said nothing, but the way he held himself said enough. I relayed all of this to Denise. She'd already seen the report. At the next hearing, she made a recommendation. Given the parents' lack of progress, the ongoing emotional impact of visits, and the children's stability in their current placement, she said, Children's Services recommends that the court consider awarding custody to the grandmother and reducing the father's visitation to therapeutic at the children's discretion. The judge listened, hands folded. Then she looked at me. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "are you willing and able to assume full legal custody of Noah and Emma until they reach adulthood?" My throat closed up. This was it. The point of no return. If I said yes, I was committing to raising 2 kids for the next decade, through middle school angst, high school drama, college applications. I was also potentially putting the final nail in my relationship with my son, at least as he currently was. If I said no, they could end up bounced around within the system, or back in a home that would slowly crush them. I thought of that note I had written months ago. Eric and kids incidents. I thought of the puddle, the way the rain had felt on my face as his taillights disappeared, the way the kids had watched, silent. I thought of Noah asking if they could stay forever,
of Emma flinching at loud noises for weeks. I straightened. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "I am willing and I am able." Eric exploded. "This is insane," he shouted, leaping to his feet. "She's stealing my kids! She's brainwashing them! You're all falling for it!" The judge slammed her gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Carter." He kept yelling. Security moved toward him. "Mr. Carter," the judge said sharply, "if you do not sit down and compose yourself, you will be removed from this courtroom and lose your right to be present at this hearing." He glared at me one last time, eyes wild. "You're dead to me," he hissed. There it was. The words people fling when they want to hurt you more than they've ever hurt anyone. It stung. Of course it did. I'm not made of stone. But another part of me, the part that had kept receipts, that had gone to therapy, that had picked herself up out of literal and metaphorical mud, that part thought, "You already left me on the side of the road. This is just you catching up to what you've already done." He sat down, mostly because he wanted to see what would happen, I think. The judge looked between us. Given the father's ongoing lack of compliance, the mother's absence from these proceedings, and the children's expressed desire to remain with their grandmother, she said, "This court is granting legal custody of Noah and Emma Carter to their grandmother." I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. The judge continued, "Mr. Carter will have the right to request therapeutic visitation in the future contingent on documented proof of sustained treatment and stability. Any contact will be at the children's discretion and under professional guidance." In plain English, the kids were mine to raise. He'd see them only if he did the work, real work, and even then, only if they wanted to.
The gavel came down. Just like that, it was done. My revenge was complete. Not flashy, not cinematic, no big showdown in the rain. Just a court order, a binding legal document. A shift in who held the power. He had thrown me out of a car and told me I wasn't worthy of being his mother. Now, a judge had ruled that I was more worthy of being his children's parent than he was. You cannot buy a poetic irony like that. The aftermath was quieter than you'd think. Eric drifted. He moved to a cheaper apartment, then to another town. I heard through the grapevine that he'd lost his job after some of his unhinged social media rants made their way to HR. Apparently threatening to teach people a lesson they'll never forget, and bragging about pushing your mother out of a car isn't a great look to employers. Who knew? He tried, once, to file a motion to change custody. The judge denied it without a hearing, based on lack of new evidence or progress. He sent Noah a birthday card one year. No money in it, just a note. "Someday you'll see what your grandma did to our family." Noah brought it to me, face unreadable. "What do you think he means?" he asked. I took a breath. "I think," I said slowly, "he's having a hard time accepting that his choices have consequences. And sometimes when people can't handle that, they blame whoever is nearby. Like how he used to blame me when he was mad," Noah said quietly. "Exactly," I said. He put the card back in the envelope and handed it to me. "You can throw it away," he said. "I don't want it." I did. Without ceremony. Just another piece of paper in the trash. As for Brittany, she faded out entirely. Occasional texts in year 1. "Tell the kids I love them, I'm just getting my life together." Then, silence. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. My focus was on the 2 small humans at my kitchen table. They grew, as kids insist on doing. Noah turned 10, then 11. He shot up, his voice cracking, his shoulders broadening. Emma turned 7, then 8, all elbows and opinions and mismatched outfits. We had hard days. Days where they missed the idea of their parents, even if they didn't miss the reality. We had therapy appointments where they cried and said things like, "Why weren't we enough for them to change?" And we had ordinary moments that felt like treasure. Noah, unprompted, helping Emma with her reading. Emma brushing my hair while we watched old movies. All three of us decorating a lopsided Christmas tree, laughing when it leaned to one side because the ornaments weren't evenly distributed. One rainy evening, years after the puddle, the three of us were in the car, coming back from the grocery store. The wipers swooshed, the road shiny in the headlights. I felt a familiar chill in my chest for a moment. I pulled over. Not in a panic, not abruptly, just calmly, to a safe spot. "Everything okay, Grandma?" Emma asked from the back seat. "Yes," I said. I just had a memory. I wanted to fix it, I guess. They both looked confused. "Get out," I said. Noah frowned. "What?" "Not like that," I chuckled. "Come on, humor me." We all stepped out, under a light drizzle. The air smelled like wet pavement and earth. "Come here," I said. I hugged them both, right there on the side of the road. Cars passed, tires hissing in the water. But we were in a safe spot, far from the lanes. "What are we doing?" Emma asked into my shoulder. "We're rewriting something," I said. "A long time ago, someone used a moment like this to throw me away. I want you to remember something different." "Like what?" Noah asked, voice wary. "Like this," I said, squeezing them. "That rain doesn't always mean bad things. That getting out of the car means hugging the people you love, not losing them." We stood there a moment longer. Then, Noah pulled back, eyes suspiciously shiny. "You're weird, Grandma," he muttered. "But in a good way." I laughed. "I'll take it." We got back in the car. I pulled onto the road, the past receding in the rear-view mirror. Sometimes, late at night, after they're asleep and the dishwasher hums in the background, I think about Eric. About the boy he was. About the man he became. About the 1,000 little choices that built the bridge between the two. I wonder if there was something I could have done differently. If I missed a sign. If I enabled too much. If my own exhaustion and trauma from his father made me less patient, less soft, less whatever he thinks he needed. I don't have a neat answer. Life rarely gives you those. What I do know is this. He was right about one thing. I am not the mother he wants. I am not endlessly forgiving.
I do not accept abuse for access to children. I will not lie for him, cover for him, or let him rewrite history so he can keep hurting people without consequence. But I am the grandmother his children need. I am the woman who will sit in waiting rooms, sign forms, show up to every meeting. I am the woman who will stand up in court and say, "Enough." I am the woman who will pick herself up out of a puddle, soak in the humiliation, and turn it into fuel. My revenge wasn't about making him suffer. That part was just collateral, really. My revenge was about taking back the narrative. He said I wasn't worthy. The courts, the caseworkers, the therapists, the teachers, they all in their own ways disagreed. More importantly, Noah and Emma disagreed. The other night, Emma crawled into my bed after a bad dream. She tucked herself under my arm,
hair tickling my nose. "Grandma?" "Yes, honey?" "I'm glad we live with you," she said sleepily. "You're safe." Safe. Not fun. Not perfect. Not never makes me mad. Safe. That's the word that matters. So, if you're wondering whether I feel guilty for calling Child Protective Services on my own son, no. I feel sad. I feel disappointed. I grieve the relationship we'll probably never have. But guilt? Not for 1 second. He threw me out of a car. I took his children out of the line of fire. He lost a mother who finally drew a line. They gained a home where their feelings were more important than someone else's pride. In the end, he got exactly what he demanded that day on the side of the road. He told me I wasn't his mother anymore. Fine.
I'm busy being their grandmother.
So another story of my grandmother has sent, and be clicking here, you will have when more such stories.